let's talk a little bit of Twitter, a little bit about Twitter. Twitter shares jumping Wednesday after the company reported better than expected revenues, earnings, user growth as well. And joining us now to discuss is Fred McClimans, partner and head of research at Samadi Partners and a contributor at Seeking Alpha. Fred, it's great to see you. A strong report from Twitter based on how investors, I guess, are reacting. What was the most important point here for you?
You know, that's a good question because everybody looks at Twitter just a little bit different here. My particular metrics that I look at, include things as broad as the focus of the management team, but from an earnings perspective, right now it's all about the number of monthly and daily average users on Twitter. That has been their biggest problem to date. Their earnings report, if you look at it on a GAAP basis, they're getting a little bit better. Revenues are still not where they should be. You saw GAAP revenue down a bit, but the losses that they're achieving are getting a little bit better in that area as well. But again, the big thing, it's monthly average users. Their users, monthly average users or MAUs, were up 6%.
Is that monthly average? Just to be clear, is that monthly average users or monthly active users?
Monthly active users.
Okay.
Yes. So, and that's a really big deal. They also reported a significant increase in daily active users. I think that was up probably about 14% on a year-over-year basis. And that really speaks to the engagement level on Twitter. And of course, where does Twitter make its revenue? It's advertising. And for advertising to work, you need engaged users, not just on a monthly basis, but on a daily basis using the platform.
Fred, let's focus in here on how much Trump may or may not be responsible for these net adds this quarter, the latest quarter for Twitter. The company added 9 million monthly users. The estimate was 2 million, so exceeding that estimate. Trump himself added 8.9 million new followers.
The Trump bump.
Of course, now it's not apples to apples entirely because that's followers versus new users necessarily on the platform. But how much can Twitter credit Trump with helping boost the business in this latest quarter?
There's an interesting phenomenon around Trump. You certainly can look at it and say, well, 8 million, 9 million new users onto the platform. Were all of those new users that signed up just to follow Trump? No, that's clearly not the case there. But what is interesting about Trump, and here's where sort of the hidden value comes into play. Before Trump, Twitter was a bit defocused. You certainly had celebrities out there that people would follow, but now you have people who are tuning into Twitter for a single purpose. They're looking for a particular channel of content, a particular piece of information or a debate around there. And that should play fairly well to Twitter if they can kind of adopt a channelization strategy. The idea of having verified channels of content for news, for sports, for politics. Maybe there's Trump TV live on Twitter. Who knows? But that focus is something that Twitter really has been lacking.
Why do you think investors can look past this current quarter guidance that was actually below what analysts had expected? So it expects EBITDA to come in between 95 and 115 million, and analyst estimates is 114 million. And again, with the shares up double digits today, now up nearly 11%. Why are investors looking past that particular guidance?
That's sort of the million, or as Mo said last week, the billion-dollar question that needs to be answered here. I think they're seeing general optimism in terms of the focus of Twitter. I think they're seeing optimism in terms of the growth of users there. But also, we're starting to see, and getting back to this channel issue, for me, that's a really important point. We're starting to hear more about the video content coming out on Twitter. They streamed 800 hours of live video in the last quarter. That was up significantly. They had 45 million unique views on that. That really starts to lend itself to Twitter becoming, much more of this cable killer type of platform where people tune in, they look for verified types of content, verified channels, and it becomes much more than just a place that they can tweet and troll other people online. That to me is a significant move forward if they really pursue that aggressively.
And Twitter is saying that it plans to broadcast live video 24 hours a day. Of course, Twitter is a partner of ours. We are live on Twitter from 3 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern time here in New York. This focus on live, obviously Twitter, Facebook, even Snap to some extent live is so important. How much does this live component for Twitter change the game?
if they can execute on this, and that's a big if. I still have some significant doubts about the effectiveness and the focus long-term of the management team. But if they can do that, this really carves out somewhat of a unique niche for Twitter. I mean, people have been comparing them to Facebook for years, and they're just not. It's just not a fair comparison. What is interesting is that if you look at this strategy here, if they really dive into that live feed, they have a discoverability factor that's just phenomenal on Twitter, the ability to find new people, new content. This could actually be a really interesting counter and perhaps even crush a bit of Snap's momentum in the marketplace. Because Snap, they've got that core demographic locked up, and they're aggressively trying to put video and news type content or entertainment content through that platform. Twitter could potentially beat them to that, being a much larger option out there in the marketplace.
At the end of the day, though, I think this all comes down to user growth, because the market today, for better or for worse, views Twitter as an advertising platform from a monetization point of view. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt recently about them turning into a data platform, et cetera. But for now, audience growth, more page views, more eyeballs, more advertising. So it strikes me that getting underneath the MAU and DAU numbers is the absolute key to understanding Twitter. Do you have any color on that beyond what we've seen in the reports? I remember in the past, there can be a lot underneath those numbers in terms of where growth is coming from, both in terms of international versus domestic, new accounts versus old accounts, and it's just a very mysterious number unless you get into the raw detail. Do you have anything there? Can we expect to get anything there? How are we going to get underneath these numbers?
So I haven't dug into the numbers that deep yet this morning. We're still crunching through that, and we're definitely looking for exactly those data points. Where are the new users coming from? I mean, if you've added 9 million, I'd like to know country by country, and I'd even like to know the age of those individuals. What's bringing them, to the Twitter platform? Right now, there's still too much confusion out there over the rise of bots and fake accounts on the network. So that when I see 9 million. I just don't have that immediate comfort feeling that those are actually 9 million newly engaged active users on the site. And in fact, another interesting data point to look at would be how many of those new users on the site are actually monthly or daily active users 3 months from now. Because Twitter has seen occasions where they bring a lot of new users to the platform, but they just don't become that active on the platform or even become dormant. And in fact, that's a huge issue for Twitter. If they could just reactivate, the 700 million dormant accounts, they could be in a great position.
All right, Fred McClimans, partner and head of research at Samadhi, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you.